Eyes up. I learned to ride a bicycle on my 8th birthday, and that's what my dad had to remind me over and over again. Eyes up. I had a beautiful baby blue Raleigh bicycle with a banana seat with white daisies on it. And at first, my dad, of course, had to hold the back of the seat. But once I was off on my own, he had to shout across the parking lot, "Eyes up!" Because I kept looking down to make sure that my feet were on the pedals, to make sure my hands were on the handlebars, to admire this gorgeous new bicycle. But every time I looked down, sure enough, my balance would get wobbly and I'd topple over. So my dad would shout, "Eyes up!" And if I'd lift my head and look where I was going, my balance would even out and I could ride. Eyes up! But invariably I'd look back and check the pedals, check the handlebars, still unsure of my learner's balance. My dad told me, "Your body will go where your eyes are looking. So eyes up." Christians, on this Good Friday, I want to remind you to keep your eyes up. In the story of Jesus' passion, in the passions of our own life, it is easy to let our gaze stray to either side, to see only the crowds, the noise, the brutality, and injustice on every side of the way to the cross. It is easy to lower our gaze, yielding to the pain of thorny crowns or to the trials as we walk the thorny ground. It is easy to close our eyes as others trudge by, dragging their crosses, or to become blinded by our own grief, by our own sorrows. It is even easy to let our eyes glaze over and yield to a world of entertainment and distraction that wishes to make us numb to the reality of the present moment. So I say, Christians, eyes up. Your body follows where your eyes are looking, and we need to have our eyes fixed on God. If we ever intend to make it through the valley of the shadow of death, if we ever intend to reach our kingdom's goal, if we ever intend to defeat violence and injustice and forge a world defined by love, Christians, eyes up. Before the cross, before the long walk to Golgotha, before the brutality, before the interrogations, before the arrest, before the betrayal, even before the garden, Jesus began to pray. In the Gospel of John, Jesus' last night with his friends is marked by this long conversation. And in John 17, verse 1, Jesus concludes the night with a prayer. John says that Jesus lifts his eyes to heaven and says, "Father." This is how Jesus prays in the Gospel of John. Outside Lazarus' tomb, the stone is rolled away, and Jesus lifts his eyes up to heaven and says, "Father." This last prayer takes up all of John chapter 17. Jesus prays that we might be one as he and the Father are one, that we might all be bound together in love, that same love which holds the universe in being might be inside you and me, binding us together. Jesus prays in words, and then the chapter turns. And in chapter 18, they walk out into the garden. And he's betrayed, arrested, taken to court, beaten, bloody, and tortured, crucified. And at the very end, when all is finished, all is done, Jesus says, "It is finished." And he bows his head and dies. All this time, from the upper room to Golgotha, Jesus keeps his eyes up. It is all one prayer. First the words, and then the living it out. All one prayer. So, when we meet his mother and his auntie and two of his best friends at the foot of the cross, we see that they are not some touching interlude in a tale of injustice and violence. No, they're the point of the entire story. Jesus' prayer in chapter 17 isn't about protection or shielding himself from pain. No, it is a prayer for the people he loves. A prayer that their love won't ever, ever, ever have to come to an end. And then he lives that prayer. He lives that prayer that proves that the bonds of love and friendship need never be broken. Not by cruelty or injustice, not even by death. And so I imagine Jesus keeping his eyes up through the whole passion in John, offering every single moment, every breath, every step as a part of his prayer, not letting his gaze slip to the faces on either side, not letting physical pain blind his eyes, not letting the nails through his body distract him from the sight of those he loves gathered around the base of the cross. Most people assume that the disciple whom Jesus loved in the text is John. But I assure you, in the text, the disciple whom Jesus loved is you. At the point in the story, it isn't so much humanity's capacity for brutality and justice that define the story. That's old news. Generation after generation, we've known about that. No, the point of this story is that despite injustice and brutality, love survives. Love gives even the most horrible day meaning, and that love will never come to an end. That is the good news. And you and I live that good news when we offer our worst days, our sleepless nights, our tear-stained faces to God as our prayer. We, like Jesus, resist defining human existence in terms of power and violence, and instead, we are an embodied witness of how humanity can be defined by love. So eyes up. It may not dull the pain, or slake the sorrow, or circumvent grief, but our bodies follow where our eyes are looking. And I know that we all look forward to the day when brutality, injustice, and pain are no more, neither sorrow nor sighing. And on that day, good Christian friends, we will rise up.